This is Trade Flow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. Trade Flow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
U.S. field production of crude oil fell in April to 12.615 million barrels per day, BPD, its lowest since February, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said on Friday. U.S. products supplied of crude and petroleum products, a proxy for demand, fell slightly to 20.446 million barrels of oil per day, EIA data showed. Products supplied of finished motor gasoline fell to 8.996 million barrels of oil per day in April from 9.007 million barrels of oil per day in March. Demand for distillates also slowed in April, with products supplied down to 3.9 million barrels of oil per day, the lowest reading since December. Jet fuel demand rose, however, to 1.615 million barrels of oil per day in April, its highest since August.
Oil prices settled higher on Friday but posted their fourth straight quarterly loss as investors worried that sluggish global economic activity could crimp fuel demand. Benchmark Brent crude futures for August delivery, which expires on Friday, settled up 56 cents, or 0.8%, at $74.90. In the 3 months to the end of June, the contract finished down 6%. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude, WTI, settled up 78 cents, or 1.1% at $70.64 a barrel. It posted its second straight quarterly drop, down about 6.5% in the latest 3 months.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
European Union countries failed again to strike a deal on the reform of Europe's electricity market on Friday, with states still at odds over potential new state aid for power plants, diplomatic sources said. The 27 EU countries are seeking a joint position on planned reforms to the EU's power market, but countries including Germany and France have struggled to agree on elements including rules on state aid for power plants. EU countries' ambassadors failed to agree to a new compromise proposal on Friday, EU diplomats said. Some complained they had not had enough time to analyze the text, which was sent to countries on Thursday evening by Sweden, which holds the EU's rotating presidency.
The Texas power grid comfortably met record demand during this week's heatwave with abundant power supply from wind and solar plants, data from the grid operator showed. The Texas grid is a focus in the United States whenever it is tested by extreme weather after a catastrophic failure in February 2021 during freezing temperatures left millions of Texans without power, water and heat for days during a deadly storm. Texas has limited connection to grids in other states, so is unable to meet spikes in demand with imported power. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. European Union countries agreed on Friday to raise proposed targets for recycling and processing of raw materials required for its green transition and added aluminium to the list of essential minerals. The Critical Raw Materials Act is a centerpiece of the EU strategy to ensure its industry can compete with the United States and China in making clean tech products and accessing the necessary raw materials. The European Commission proposed in March that EU extraction of 16 strategic raw materials, including lithium and copper, should rise to 10% of EU annual consumption by 2030, EU recycling to 15% and EU processing to 40%. No more than 65% of a material should come from a single third country.
Benchmark iron ore futures were headed for their best month so far in 2023 despite some losses on Friday, amid hopes China would roll out more stimulus to support its sputtering post-COVID economic rebound. Factory activity in top steel producer China declined for a third consecutive month in June and weakness in other sectors deepened, official surveys showed, piling pressure on Beijing to do more to shore up growth amid faltering demand. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange ended daytime trade 0.7% lower at 822 yuan and 50 fen, $113.35 per metric ton, erasing earlier gains though it was still on track for its biggest monthly gain in 7 months, up around 17%.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
The European Commission on Thursday sharply cut its monthly forecast for this year's cereals harvests in the bloc, with usable production of common wheat now seen 2.6 million tons lower than last month at 128.9 million metric tons. The sharp drop in its wheat crop supply outlook led the Commission to cut its projected stocks on June 30, 2024 to 20.5 million tons, from 23.9 million previously. In supply and demand data, it kept unchanged its estimate of EU wheat exports in 2023-24 at 32.0 million tons, up from an estimated 31.0 million in 2022-23. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to Trade Flow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at Trade Flow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.